What if I told you you might have been playing FM wrong this whole time? Well, you'd probably tell me to shut my mouth, to get lost, and in all honesty, you'd have every right to do so. Of course, FM is a game that you should play however you want to. It's a solo game, it's not a multiplayer game, and you can play it as detailed or undetailed as you like. But with that being said, there are some common mistakes that I see both experienced players and beginner players making that I think if they just knew about how things really work or something that you could do in game to make a big difference, they would do said thing and it would really help their FM experience. In this video, we're going to cover some conceptual things that will change the way you view your team and Football Manager, as well as really little button clicks that are going to save you hundreds of thousands of pounds, if not potentially millions, in your save. So hopefully there'll be something for everyone. We do have a lot to get into today and I'll try and keep it as short, sweet and brief as I possibly can, but before we start, if you guys could show your support by smashing a like button, we would massively appreciate it. This video is a win-win for everyone. You get the tips, we get the like on the video, and it really helps us. Make sure you're subscribed as well so you don't miss the daily content we have here over on FMSCOUT. And finally, if you have any questions about any of this, or you have some mistakes that you want to talk about in the comments, make sure you get involved down below. With that being said, all the plugging is out of the way, and we can take a look at the first thing that I want to talk about, the first way you might have been playing FM wrong, and it's all about these things here, star ratings. Now, I can't believe it's taken me until March to speak about these here on the channel for FM24, because we used to speak about it all the time on FM23 and 22, even making videos about said subject on a repeated basis. Now though, we're here in FM24, for some of you it might be common knowledge, others you might not know that star ratings aren't really to be trusted. Now, when I say they're not to be trusted, they are good for one thing, and that's comparing players in your squad to other players in your squad, i.e. someone with 2.5 stars is probably a worse player than someone with 4 stars, but these star ratings are purely someone's opinion, and that opinion can be a bad one, we'll get onto that later. They're also very fluctuating, i.e. they can change on a regular basis without too much influence, and they're actually not a full judge of how good a player is. Let's go in order and talk about the first thing I mentioned there, that these star ratings are somebody's opinion. That is because if you go to a coach report, let's say Parola, and we go to his report, you can see this is a report provided by a coach. In this case, it's Rui Pedro Silva. If we go to our staff screen and then find him as our assistant manager here, you will see, if I click on it actually, that he has a judging player ability and judging player potential rating of 17 and 16, which are pretty good ratings out of 20. That's going to determine how well he can judge the ability of our players. So he is actually someone that's pretty capable of doing these coach reports. But if you had instead, for example, your director of football doing it, ours in this case only has 12 player ability and 12 for player potential. So he's going to be worse at doing this job and therefore will give less accurate coach reports. Now in this case, we are golden. We have got someone that knows what he's doing giving us these coach reports, but for you guys, it might be the other way around. You might have someone like this doing the coach reports, whereas you've got a better staff member and you'd rather him give you the reports. If you want to do that, head to the responsibilities tab, go to advice and reports, and then you can change who's giving you the reports from this drop down here on provides player reports. Make sure you hit confirm, and then you're going to get more accurate, at least, star rating reports on your players. Now the second thing I mentioned is that those star ratings can fluctuate. If a player is in good form, his star rating will go up. If he's playing poorly, his star rating will go down. That is not really reflective of how good a player is, because in Football Manager, a player is only really as good as his attributes. So just because they might be out of form, their star ratings will go down, and that might make you think that they're a worse player. That is not the case at all. Don't think of it like that. Star ratings can fluctuate, and they're not something that you should really be too bothered by if you see them go down or also go up. Now the third thing I mentioned earlier was that the star ratings weren't necessarily just a judge of how good a player was in terms of his attributes. In fact, they incorporate a lot of things that are actually affecting the star rating that maybe shouldn't do. For example, our coach is saying he's a 3-star player, but he is also considering there the fact that he is liked by the fans, the fact that he doesn't count towards registration rules because he's a domestic player, and whilst that is great, do we really want that to be a reason why their rating a player higher than someone else? I don't necessarily think so, or at least when you're looking at star ratings, you need to know that it's not just taking into account their attributes. The best way to judge players is to look at their attributes on paper for the role you're intending to use them in and then judge them that way. And that's the reason why I say you shouldn't trust star ratings. Often all of us are out there trying to get a 5-star in every position for your team, and that is just not going to happen. The reason for that is star ratings are actually in comparison to other players at your club and in your league. So the fact that Parola is a 4-star means that other players in this squad are lower star ratings, because not everyone can be a 4-star player, as the star ratings are being compared to each other. Your league is also taken into account. So for example, if you have a player in the 6th tier of England when you're managing in that division and he's a 5-star player, that doesn't mean he'll be a 5-star player at Manchester United in the Premier League. And for the same reason, if you took Manchester United's team from the Prem and put them in the 6th tier of English football, they're all going to show as 5-star players, or at least, you know, you'd hope they would, Manchester United fans. So don't really take those star ratings into account too much. They're not really accurate, and you're also never really going to get a 5-star rating in every position. As good as it might look on paper, it's not something that you're going to see very often, if at all. This next tip though is a lot more simple. It's something that's going to save you a lot of money both in transfer negotiations and contract negotiations, but a lot of people don't do it. So we'll take this player for example here, Lorenzo Parola. If many of you were going to give him a new contract, you just go to contract and you'd enter contract negotiations. That's the way it's normally been in FM, and I don't blame you for doing so. But I definitely think this is a mistake if you're not going ahead, you're not going to the contract screen and then discuss new contract with agent. The reason for this is you can save yourself a lot of money. Not only will you get a good judge of the kind of money that they'd want in their contract by clicking one of these buttons. Let's say this one here, we're keen on renewing Lorenzo Parola's contract. By clicking it, we get a good idea of the wages he wants, and if we didn't know this, we might offer him 130 grand a week and find out he would have been accepting of 98 grand. But the reason I say it's a mistake for not clicking this isn't for that reason, it's because you can do this. You can actually say, I think you're asking for too much in the wages, I want you to be more realistic. Sometimes it will work. You'll never actually offend an agent enough that they won't have a contract negotiation with you. But if we try using it here on Lorenzo Parola, you'll see he isn't desperate to renew his contract, so he's only going to go for those wages. That's fine. Let's try and find a new example. There you go. I've just tried it on this player, Josh Bowler. He's gone from wanting 20.5k to 25k to now willing to accept 18.5 to 22, just with one button click. It didn't affect us in a massive way, but we now know if we offer those kind of wages, it will likely be accepted, and that will save you a lot of money. And the same thing goes for when you're trying to sign players in the transfer market too. If we find someone here that we want to try and buy, let's say Caden Young from Aston Villa, we can go ahead and we could offer Aston Villa the money that's on the valuation here of about 15 million, because that's what our scouts have came back with. But that's a mistake, because again, you can go to transfer, ask agent about availability, you can then say we're keen on signing Caden Young, and you'll get a good idea of what to pay for him. But again, you can do the same thing that we just did with our own player, Josh Bowler. You can see how much wages this guy's going to want, and again, you can say something like this, you're only willing to pay a little bit less. They've now lowered their contract demands a little bit, we'll know we'll be paying them less money. We've also been given a much better accurate representation by clicking this of the value that Aston Villa would accept. So now we're not only going to save ourselves money on the transfer front, but also in the contract negotiation as well. Very simple to do, an easy button click, takes an extra 10 seconds in your transfer negotiation, but could give you enough money by doing this on all of your transfers to buy an extra player each transfer window. We've still got two things to cover in this video, but before we get there, you might notice we're using a Nottingham Forest save here. This is actually a rebuild from my own channel, which you can find linked in the description if you want to check it out, where we're trying to rebuild Nottingham Forest with a points deduction. We have Football Manager rebuilds every week on the channel, where in the space of one video, we give ourselves 5 seasons in about 25 to 30 minutes to try and change your club's fortunes around. So if anyone does come and check my channel out, I'd massively appreciate it. But let's get on to the third thing I want to cover, and it's all about hidden attributes. Now, this is something that a lot of people in the game don't know exist, and if they do, they don't know enough about it and how it might affect their players. So let's cover it now. Now, when you sign a player in Football Manager, it's very easy to look at their price and their attributes that you can see on screen and decide to buy a player that way, and that is perfectly fine. But what you should be doing is just taking a look at their coach report to find out about their hidden attributes. What are hidden attributes, you might ask? Well, if you have the in-game editor on, which I don't in this save, but if you had it on, you'll be able to see there's another 10 to 15 attributes hidden under the hood that determine a few things about a player, their personality, as well as their ability to develop and how how good they're going to play in matches. For example, there's hidden attributes like professionalism, adaptability, there's also ones like versatility, which will affect how well they can get into different positions on the pitch when you train them there, but there's also things that affect them on the pitch too, like important matches, which affects how good they are in, you guessed it, important matches, and also consistency, that affects how regularly a player actually plays to the attributes you're seeing on screen. And without the editor, you have no way of knowing about these players' hidden attributes, or do you? Because in a scout report that you'll get when you go to sign someone, they'll tell you all these things. They'll let you know if a player has a high rating for injury proneness. They'll let you know if a player is good in big games or a consistent performer, and it's something you should be looking out for. In this case, look, Parola is a consistent performer. He's got a bright green symbol for it here. In all cases, the darker the symbol, the more extreme that attribute is. For example, consistency is an attribute from 1 to 20. If it's 14, 15, 16, it will show as a pro, and the better it is, if it's 17, 18, it will be a darker colour green like this, compared to the lighter colour green if it was 14 or 15. If it was in the middle, say 10, 11, 9, it probably wouldn't even show in a coach report because it's not worth talking about, and if it's a negative, it will show in the con section. If he had, say, 5 or 6 consistency, it would show as an orange colour, and if it was a dark red colour, you would know he's a very inconsistent player. That means he's actually only going to play at the attributes that you see on screen on a less regular basis. Consistency doesn't affect physical attributes because, of course, how quick someone is always going to be the same, but if you have someone with low consistency, it will actually mean in games that their finishing or their first touch or their passing won't actually be as good as you might expect when you look at their attributes. That's just one of many hidden attributes that you should look out for, but always check your scout reports when you sign a player, because it might show you something that will put you off signing someone, or the opposite, make you sign someone when you realise they're really consistent. But at the same time, if you see there's an inconsistent player who's injury prone, yes, some of these attributes might change over their career, but it might be worth looking at different options in the transfer market instead of splashing your cash on a £30 million player just to find out they're not very good in most matches and they're only going to turn up for you once or twice a season. Anthony, we're looking at you, mate. So that's 3 things covered, and you might hear my voice is starting to go now after a long day of recording different FM videos for you here on the FMSCOUT channel, so do bear with me on that front. But there is one more thing I want to speak about, and it's to do with when you loan players out, and also it is to do with a hidden attribute. That hidden attribute is adaptability, and it's something you all should be looking for in your players, in your young players particularly, when you're sending them out on loan to develop. So we've got a few players in our dev centre here who are ready to go out on loan. We've got Noah Lamino, we've got Cressida Fawn, Mark Mahoney, amongst many others. These are guys that might not be good for the starter team, but should be loaned out at this stage, or at least according to the game. You might have that with other players of similar ages, where you're ready to loan them out to other clubs, and one thing you need to take a look at in their coach report is to see if there's any mention of adaptability. Now, it isn't something that commonly appears, but you can often find it later as you go into your saves, particularly with new gen players. But what you want to see is if there is anything that mentions adaptability, either as a pro or a con. Now, as you might imagine, adaptability is a player's ability to adapt to a new environment. For example, Noah Lamina, if he had high adaptability and we sent him out on loan from Forest to, say, Granada in Spain, that's going to be quite a big jump in terms of culture, style of football, and it might take him a few months to acclimatise there. But the higher he has in that adaptability rating, the quicker he will accept that nation, the quicker he'll start to develop there. Whereas if Lamina had low adaptability, he'd go there and it might take him a few months where he wouldn't play and he wouldn't develop because he's just not really understanding the nation as a whole. So what you want to make sure you're looking for is if your players are adaptable or not. If it's not mentioned, they should be okay, but if it's a con or if it's a pro, take it into account. If a player isn't adaptable, loan them out to clubs in your nation, and if they are adaptable, then you have actually got the option to send them abroad. But so often, I've done it in the past as well, you just look at which team gives you the most money in the players' wages when you loan them out as to which one to send them to. It's probably not the best idea. When you're thinking about young player development, yes, you might save 200 quid a week for your club if you loan him out to one team over the other, but you'd rather him get the better development to turn him into a player for your team or someone to sell on. So there's a few things to consider when loaning someone out. First thing I'd look is if they actually have space for that player in the team. Noah Lamina, if he was going to say Birmingham on loan, for example, I'd check out Birmingham, I'd see if they had a left winger that was really good. So often I've been told my guy is going to be a star player at said club when he gets loaned there, only to find that there's actually someone above him in the pecking order and then he doesn't play. But also I'd be looking at their facilities. We spoke about Birmingham earlier, so let's use them as the example here. If we go to their facilities, you will see they have excellent training facilities, which is exactly what we're looking for. Any of the players that go out on loan to these clubs will use the training facilities. If they've got terrible facilities and a player isn't going to get game time, you may as well keep them at your club. Once they hit 18 and they're ready to be loaned out, don't just click the option offers the most money. Take a look, see which club has the best facilities, think about your young players' adaptability if it is mentioned, and that way you'll get better loans for your players and hopefully better development for them too. So there you go, there's 4 things that you might have been doing wrong in FM. If you did happen to know about all 4 things, and congratulations, you are a Football Manager expert. We'll get a certificate sent out to your door as soon as possible. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. My voice is gone, I'm going to take a rest, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.